In the heart of a forgotten village tucked deep within the shadowed valleys of the Congo Basin, where mist clings to the earth like a restless spirit and the trees whisper old secrets, there lived a woman who was never truly buried. Her name was Mbawe, and she was no ordinary woman. They say when she died, her eyes never closed. And even now, years later, the villagers speak in hushed tones about the day they buried her and how she never stopped watching. The village of Mbawe was old, older than memory. It was built on sacred ground, a land the ancestors once warned should never be disturbed. Yet people settled anyway, drawn by the fertile soil and abundant game. They planted, hunted, and raised families. But beneath the surface, something ancient stirred. And it all began with the birth of Mbawe. She came into the world during a thunderstorm that split the skies and set fire to a baobab tree, a bad omen. Her mother, a quiet woman named Silima, died moments after childbirth. The midwife swore she saw the baby's eyes already open, staring straight into hers, unblinking. The villagers whispered. Some said Mbawe was cursed, born with the eyes of the dead. As Mbawe grew, odd things began to happen. Chickens turned up bloodless. Shadows moved across the walls with no one there. Children who bullied her fell ill for days. Yet she never flinched, never cried. She walked barefoot even in the dry season, her eyes always watching, always wide. The elders grew wary. They said she had the seeing gift, a rare and dangerous thing. When she turned 17, the village elders confronted her. They demanded she leave, to live beyond the village borders. But she only smiled. That night, the chief's youngest son vanished. His body was never found, only his skin, draped over a calabash by the riverbank. Fear consumed Ma. By 23, Mbawe lived alone in a mud hut near the edge of the forest, speaking to no one. Her hair, always tangled with thorns, reached her waist. Her eyes never closed, not even when she slept. One hunter who passed by her window swore he saw her standing completely still in the moonlight, staring straight at him, her pupils glowing like coals. He never hunted again. Some began calling her a witch. Others said she was something worse, something ancient, reborn. But when a deadly sickness swept through the village, claiming the chief and his 2 brothers, it was Mbawe who offered a cure. She brought herbs that shimmered oddly under the moon. She whispered incantations in a language no one recognized. And it worked. The fever broke. Out of fear and gratitude, the villagers tolerated her. But they never let her in again. And her eyes never stopped watching. Then came the day of her death. A boy had gone missing near her hut. The villagers, fueled by old anger and new fear, marched with machetes and torches. They dragged Mbawe from her home, still silent, still barefoot. They beat her, tied her up, and buried her alive, deep in the earth beneath the tamarind tree. But before they covered her face with soil, they saw her eyes, open, wide, defiant. And even as the last handful of earth fell, they did not close. That night, the wind howled like a mourning mother. The river swelled though no rain had fallen. And the tamarind tree bled. For 7 years, nothing grew near her grave. No birds sang in that part of the forest. And the village moved on, though no one dared speak her name. Until Cato returned. Cato had been a boy when Mbawe was buried. He left the village shortly after, fleeing to the city to study and escape the creeping dread that clung to Mbawe. But 7 years later, a letter arrived. His father was dying. He came back a man, strong, educated, skeptical of village lore. He scoffed at stories of witches and curses, insisting that science explained everything. But when he walked past the tamarind tree, he paused. It stood still as stone. No wind dared touch it. And at its base, a single patch of earth remained uncovered by grass, barren, dry, unnaturally cold. His cousin warned him, "That is where the witch sleeps. Do not disturb her." But Cato, ever the skeptic, left. "Dead is dead," he said. The next morning, the earth was torn open. The villagers found the grave freshly dug, yet untouched by human hands. The soil was thrown outward, as if something had clawed its way up from below. And lying there, face up in the exposed pit, was Nambua's corpse, intact, her skin darkened but unrotted, her hair spread like a fan around her head, and her eyes still open. She hadn't decayed. She had waited. Panic spread like wildfire. Old women wailed and spat curses. Children were kept indoors. The elders, trembling, called for rituals long forgotten. They burned incense, sacrificed white goats, and chanted under the full moon. But it was too late. That night, Cato heard knocking at his window. He lived in his father's old compound on the edge of the village. The knock was gentle at first, 3 soft taps. Then silence. He rose from bed and peered through the wooden slats. No one. He lay back down, heart racing. Then the knock came again, louder this time. For slow, deliberate taps. He crept toward the window, stomach twisting. The lantern flickered. The night air was thick. He opened the curtain and froze. 2 eyes stared back at him from the darkness, glowing faintly, unblinking. They were too high for a child, too wide for a human. And they did not move. He slammed the window shut. But the knocks came again, this time from the door. Then the walls. Then the roof. Everywhere. He lit a candle and held it close, trembling. A voice whispered behind him, low, feminine, and cruel. You laughed at my grave. He turned, but no one was there. Only the candle, flickering violently. The flame turned blue. The next morning, the village found Cato crouched by the tamarind tree, muttering to himself. His eyes were red, his fingernails caked with blood. He repeated the same phrase over and over. She sees, even now, she sees. In the days that followed, animals disappeared. Children claimed to see a woman in the forest, standing just beyond the trees, her eyes shining in the dark. The tamarind tree grew taller, its bark black as coal, its roots curling like fingers across the earth. And deep in the soil beneath it, something breathed. Buried, but not gone. She had been buried with her eyes open. And she never stopped watching. The villagers had seen madness before, during sickness, famine, and war. But not like this. Cato had once been the pride of Mbawe, the city-educated son who was supposed to bring light back to the village. Now he sat cross-legged beneath the tamarind tree, muttering to himself, eyes hollow, staring into nothingness. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. And when people approached, he whispered warnings that chilled their bones. She walks between worlds, he said. She sees what we do, even in our dreams. The elders held an emergency meeting in the central hut, a place sacred for its connection to the ancestors. The old matriarch, Mama Yagbe, the only one left who remembered the rituals before Nambua's time, spoke softly. We did not bury a wish. We buried an ekibando, a soul that sees in both life and death. A silence fell over the hut. The word hadn't been uttered in generations. She was born with the veil already lifted, Mama Yagbe continued. And we buried her with her eyes open. That means her soul never crossed. She is trapped between here and the after, watching both. And now, she is angry. That night the air shifted. It was hot and cold at once, oppressive, stifling. Dogs barked at shadows. Drums played in the distance, though no one beat them. And then the dreams began. Villagers woke screaming from visions of Nambua, her face pale, her eyes wide and staring, standing at the foot of their beds, whispering in a language older than memory. In one household, a baby wailed endlessly until dawn, staring only at the ceiling where no one stood. In another, a woman found muddy footprints leading from her doorstep to her bedroom, despite locking her door tight. The grave had not closed, and the witch's eyes were everywhere. Cato's brother, Juma, decided to act. A strong believer in reason, he refused to succumb to fear. He gathered 4 men, tied red cloths around their necks for protection, and armed themselves with machetes and a lantern. Their goal was simple: dig the grave deeper and burn whatever was left. But when they arrived at the tamarind tree, the earth was undisturbed. Or so they thought. The moment Juma plunged his spade into the soil, the lantern went out. Complete darkness swallowed them. The air grew thick with the scent of decay and wet roots. One of the men screamed, then silence. When the lantern relit itself, Juma was alone. The other three had vanished. Not a scream. Not a sound. Only a strange symbol carved into the tree's trunk, fresh, glistening with dark sap. He turned to run, but found himself face to face with her. She wasn't decayed. She wasn't alive. Her eyes, they were wide, impossibly wide, and they pulsed with red light. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Only her gaze spoke, and in that moment, Juma understood. The grave had been a prison, and someone had broken the lock. Juma ran. Branches tore at his skin, roots tried to trip him, but fear drove him forward like a hunted animal. Behind him, silence pressed down like a heavy fog. No footsteps. No breathing. But he could feel her watching, those unblinking eyes burning into his back. When he reached the village, the sky had changed. It was not night, but it was not day either. A gray pall hung over Mbawe like a shroud. The birds were silent. The wind was gone. The world had paused, held hostage by something ancient and angry. He burst into the elder's hut, bleeding and gasping, falling to his knees before Mama Yagbe. "She's awake," he choked. "She's out." Mama Yagbe closed her eyes. "Then it has begun. The final watching." She ordered the villagers to gather. Drums were beaten, not in celebration, but in mourning. The people came with heads bowed, carrying offerings of cowrie shells, kola nuts, and goat's blood. They gathered beneath the tamarind tree, now blackened and taller than before. It loomed like a sentinel between worlds. Mama Yagbe stepped forward, holding a calabash carved with old sigils. She chanted in the forgotten tongue, the one only dreamers and the dying remembered. But then, something moved in the tree. A low creaking. Then a form slid down the trunk like a shadow peeled from bark. Mbawe. She wore the earth like a cloak, dirt clung to her skin, her hair heavy with worms. But her eyes, those terrible watching eyes, were clean. "Hungry. You buried me alive," she whispered. No mouth moved. The voice came from everywhere. "You feared what you did not understand." Mama Yagbe stepped forward, trembling. "You were born between a bridge, not a curse. I offered peace. You gave me fire. I gave healing. You gave me death." The calabash cracked in Mama Yagbe's hands. Blood poured from it onto the roots. "Then take what you came for," she whispered. Mbawe stepped forward, silent and slow. She touched Mama Yagbe's forehead. The old woman crumbled to ash. A scream tore through the crowd. Panic erupted. But Mbawe did not chase. She watched. One by one, those who had buried her fell. Not by blade. Not by fire. By the weight of her stare. Their hearts stopped, their mouths frozen in terror, eyes wide, mirroring hers. By morning, half the village was gone. Kato, still broken but breathing, sat beneath the tamarind tree. He looked into the forest where the witch had vanished again. He spoke softly. She wasn't evil. She was wronged. In the silence that followed, something stirred in the leaves. And he understood. Mbawe didn't seek revenge. She sought remembrance. From that day on, no one in Mbawe buried their dead without closing the eyes first. No child was left alone at night. And no one spoke Mbawe's name aloud. Because the grave was never closed. And the witch who watched from the grave still watches.